All right, in this example, again, we're given the equation. The directions are the same as the last example. We got 7 key points we're looking for and the graph. But this time the equation is not in the sort of our nice standard form for an ellipse. The problem is I don't have any denominators. Well, my denominators are 1 technically. And the constant on the other side is 4. Well, in all of our standard forms, we need a 1 over on the other side. So what I need to do is divide both sides of the equation by this 4 to create the 1 constant. And once the constant is 1, then we'll see the denominators develop. Okay? So the first thing we'll do here is to divide out the 4. Divide it out there, divide it out there, divide it out there. And here 4's will cancel. Here the 4's will cancel, and left with 1. And so my equation will become x minus 2 squared. I don't have anything, 1 is my denominator at this point. Sometimes it's nice to actually write that in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll put a 1 down there. Here, with the y's, the denominator is 4. And on the other side, 4 over 4 makes the 1. And so now we do have the nice standard form of an ellipse. In this particular example, the larger denominator is under the y, okay? The smaller one is under the x. So that implies immediately that this graph will be oriented vertically with the major axis running in the vertical direction or parallel to the y-axis, okay? So from there I can get basically all of my 7 key points, just knowing that these two values are going to be b squared equals 1 and a squared equals 4. Okay? A is again always the larger of the two. And so that means b is equal to 1, a is equal to 2. If I use those two values and solve for c, I know that 1 squared is equal to 2 squared minus c squared. So 1 equals 4 minus c squared. If I subtract the 4, I get negative 3 equals negative c squared. 3 equals c squared, which means c is equal to the square root of 3. Again, in order to plot this as a focus, I am going to need my calculator. I get the square root of 3, which is roughly 1.7. Okay, so approximately 1.7. That should get us a good enough point on the graph. Okay. Okay, what else do I need? Oh, the center. The center is located at h comma k. In our case, the center would be at positive 2 comma negative 1. Remember, you change the sign on the two values in the parentheses. All right, so 2 comma negative 1. All right, and so then I can list out all of my points on the major and minor axes. On the major axis, we know that the vertex, the two vertices are going to be using the a value, and they're going to be in the y direction. Okay, so think about it. And I'm doing this without the table. I'm just thinking through the details here. So the vertices are in the y direction. And so that a value is going to be in the y coordinate. So it's 0, comma 2 and 0, comma negative 2. I usually go with the smaller one first. Oops. And then vertex 2 would be at 0, comma 2. So again, those are in the y direction because the y denominator is bigger. The foci, focus 1, is going to be at 1.7 and negative 1.7. So 0, comma negative 1.7 and 0, comma positive 1.7. Oh, I didn't factor in the center. That would be important. Let me add to that. So, okay, so basically with the center being shifted over 2 comma negative 1, you just add those two coordinates to each of those coordinates. I was getting ahead of myself here. So let's change that up a little bit. 2 comma negative 1 added to 0 comma negative 2 would change the x coordinate to a 2. And negative 1 and negative 2 would actually make a negative 3. Okay, so we do have to be careful there. Then I do the same thing on the other vertex. I go shift it over 2, so the 0 becomes a 2. And add the negative 1 to the 2, and I get a 1. That should work. So you can kind of see how those are developing. The focus, the 2 foci, I missed that one. That should be at 2. And if I go negative 1 and negative 1.7, I'll actually be at negative 2.7. And then here, if I add the 2 to the x coordinate, I get 2. If I add the negative 1 to the y coordinate, I actually will get 0.7 on that one. Okay? That's better. Oops. Okay, don't miss that. Again, I'm trying to do this without looking at the formulas, but I got to be more careful. So there's my major axis. The minor axis. Try to be consistent. The minor axis, remember, that's in the in the x direction, or the horizontal direction. And so, the minor axis, that's going to be the b values, and those are at plus minus 1. Okay, so again, maybe I'll write them down as though it was centered at the origin, and then we'll add in our center. So they would be at 0 comma negative 1, no, sorry, the other way around. X direction, right? So it would be negative 1 comma 0 and 1 comma 0. But then again, remember, we add in the 2 negative 1. So I add the 2 to the minus 1 and I get a positive 1. I add a negative 1 to the 0 and I get a negative 1. And over here I add 2 and 1 make 3. And then negative 1 and 0 makes negative 1. Okay? Alright, that should be good. So now I'm going to plot these 7 points. I've got 6 on the right here in the center. I plot those 7 points and then connect the outer dots with an ellipse. Hopefully that'll work. So let's go ahead and do that. This is going to be running more vertically than horizontally. So you need a little bit longer, taller, I should say, a little bit taller graph. The center, I got to shift this too. The center is at 2 comma negative 1. So I got to go over 2 and down 1. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I go over 2, the minor axis is only 1 unit over from there. So 2 units over, down 1. There's my center at 2, negative 1. Okay. Then I'm going to have the minor axes, or the 2 points on the minor axis are going to be at 1 comma negative 1 and 3 comma negative 1. So there they are. It's going to be a pretty narrow ellipse. I guess for the graph that I have here, I probably drew the grid too big. That's alright. The major axis, I've got my 2 vertices. They're going to be at 2 comma negative 3 and at 2 comma 1. Okay. And then the foci, I got to squeeze these foci in here. I probably should have, definitely drawn this differently. The foci are going to be at at 2 comma negative 2.7, so that's right about there, and 2 comma 0.7, which is right about there. So they're very close to the vertices again. And then I just connect the outer points. Okay, so try to do this without being too pointy. Oh, missed it. Redo that side. There, not too bad. This one might be a little boxy here. Curve that a little bit more. There, doesn't look too bad. Anyway, there's my ellipse.